Welcome to the 9th episode of the 1796 podcast, a monthly podcast that features exclusive interviews and in-depth news about the Tennessee National Guard and the Tennessee Military Department.
The 1796 podcast is produced every month by the airmen and soldiers of the Tennessee National Guard Joint Public Affairs Office. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Malone.
And I'm Captain Hall, your co-host of the 1796 podcast. As we wrap up the inaugural year of the podcast, we'll hear from senior leaders about lessons learned and what we can expect in 2023.
Captain Hall sits down with Brigadier General Warner Ross, the Assistant Adjutant General for the Tennessee Army National Guard.
And Lieutenant Colonel Malone talks with Colonel Jason Glass, the Assistant Adjutant General for the Tennessee Air National Guard.
And of course, we'll brief you on the latest and most important news impacting the Tennessee National Guard in our Tennessee Bluff news segment. Let's go first to Captain Hall with Brigadier General Ross.
Well, we are honored today to be joined by Brigadier General Warner Ross, who is the Assistant Adjutant General for the Army National Guard. General Ross, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. But it's my honor because I think, our ability to get the message out, or the efforts that you guys go towards putting our message out and getting our story out is very important. This is another medium to do that. So the honor is mine.
Thank you, sir. Well, General Ross, we're excited to kick it off with the first question. Just you tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you into the Army National Guard.
Yeah, so I go back to rural West Tennessee, to a small farm that had a lot of veterans on it. And so they had a tremendous amount of influence on me. Obviously, in fact, one of those guys that worked on my dad and granddad's farms actually took me over to the recruiting office in Tennessee National Guard, the armory there in Bolivar, and had me convinced that at his age, I think he was 40, late 40s, that if I signed up as a 23-year-old, 22-year-old, straight out of college, that he would re-sign. I end up signing all the paperwork, and I turned over to what I thought was my mentor to watch him sign in. He's like, well, I'm sorry, Nub, they told me I was a little bit too old. But those guys had a tremendous influence. I come from a military family, and then in that rural background, and never envisioned that 32 or 33 years later I would still be serving, but I'm so happy I did. I'm so thankful for the influence that not just those guys on the farm. I think there were 7 or 8 families there that lived and worked with us alongside of us, but every family had a patriarch in multiple generations that had served both in Korea, Vietnam. All of those people had a tremendous amount of influence on why I got in and really, truthfully, why I continue to serve.
That is a phenomenal background. And one thing that our listeners may not know is that you have a deep background in public education as well. Yeah. And so would love for you to share a little bit about that background and how you see that relating to your work here in the Army National Guard, and especially as it relates to training and preparing soldiers for the future. Yeah,
it's directly connected. So my mom was a teacher. Had an uncle, a great uncle that had been a teacher and superintendent. So I was drawn to that occupation as well. But the direct connection comes 2 weeks ago on a Friday on Veterans Day, when we welcomed our 268 MP battalion back, or the 268 MPs back, the company back from their mission over the Horn of Africa. And standing there on the tarmac with General Holmes and General Cole and a lot of families and stuff, I had a particular interest in this unit. Because when that plane deboarded, there were 3 soldiers on there that I had served, not only served with, but I had served as their middle school principal. One of those 3 soldiers, not only had I served as his middle school principal back years ago, but also had just hired him 3 years ago as an ag teacher in my district at one of my high schools. So I'd watch these guys, and in a lot of cases gals as well, come up through the middle school. They were my students. Later, as I was a superintendent of school for 12, 13 years in Hardeman County, I just got to see the progression, and I went to every high school graduation, had a direct connection to those that were going into the military, whether it was Compo 1 or Compo 2 or whatever their choice was. I really, we put a lot of emphasis in education on post-secondary education, and that's great. We put even more emphasis on those that go and play college athletics. We have signing parties and all that. Well, I made it my mission to take a direct interest in those that were going to the military, whether it be active duty service, Navy, Coast Guard, National Guard, or whatever. And we started recognizing our seniors at graduation with special cords and veils to go on their graduation robes. Because and now back to your original question, how do I see the training correlation there? What we do in the military is continually teach. So it's just an extension of that. Mm-hmm. Those two careers are connected in what we do. And so, to me, that's very, very special. And that's if I would show up and do this job free of charge just to get those opportunities to see. And I'm here to tell you as a public school educator that we got a lot of great young people.
Well, that's really a remarkable connection between those two career paths. And just like in public education, the Army and the military at large is facing a lot of changes right now. What are some imminent changes that you see happening here in the Tennessee Army National Guard?
Well, there's a lot of good changes going on. We have our modernization. So modernization right now, the big ticket item for us is our tanks and Bradleys, and specifically the 278. So that's going to go through about the next year. The really unique thing is for us, the 278 is one of 5 ABCTs that's out there in the Compo 2 formations. But we will be the first to go through modernization of those 5 National Guard brigades. So that's great for us. That's great for our soldiers. I got 2 weeks ago, just by happenstance, got to go to Lima, Ohio, to actually the facility there that manufactures the tanks and refurbishes those. Actually got to see some of the 278's hulls. They strip those things all the way down to the hull and rebuild them. So it's a pretty phenomenal process. Those folks are really happy to see the end user, which is not me, but I represent the end user, in the plant and in the assembly plant and watching. But actually, based off the hull numbers, got to see some of our units going through that process. So that's going to be great for us. We're going to have the most modernized brigade in the National Guard with the 278th. But having said that, modernization goes across. It's touching every brigade that we have. I think just a couple of months ago, I was had a presentation for senior leaders here in the state, and we looked at all the different pieces of equipment that we're modernizing. There's not a brigade that's not being touched. So that's all good. Next week, we'll be assuming control and licensing for about 16,000 additional acres down in West Tennessee, Milan, at the Milan Arsenal. That's going to open up a lot of opportunity for us for maneuver lanes, scout recce ranges, to do some things here in Tennessee that our soldiers have to travel to Camp Shelby, Fort Stewart, Fort Campbell, other places, just to have that type of maneuver space. So Milan training site is going to give us great opportunity in space, an additional 16,000 acres that we just haven't had before. So it's a lot of exciting stuff going on there.
Sounds like great things that are happening in the Army National Guard. So step back into your days as a school leader, and if you're talking to a high school student right now that might be listening to this podcast, why should they join the Tennessee Army National Guard?
Well, a lot of good reasons there. On the education front, the things that we can do with our Strong Act. Our state's in an enviable position that we already have Hope Scholarship, Tennessee Promise. So now we have the Strong Act, which can carry you all the way through a master's. I don't. When I would sit with a high school student, I did this many times to include my own sons, who had served in the National Guard. I didn't necessarily say, "Hey, we're the only choice." I just want to be at the table, and I want to show all these opportunities that you had to grow. Be a part of something and get. I think the Guard provides us an opportunity, or a young person, myself, too, till to this day. Hey, the Guard is at the intersection of purpose and passion. It's a passion to be most of us want to be a part of a team. Well, we provide that 1,000-fold, whether it's in aircraft, whether it's on the cyber teams, whether it's in a Bradley crew, a tank crew, over in the engineers. There's so many different and diverse teams that you can be on here. And then it's that purpose. serving something larger than yourself. I don't know that any of us come to this uniform to get wealthy, because if you do, you're not going to. But most all of us come for a purpose larger than ourselves, and that's what the Guard provides.
What a remarkable history and career you've had in the military so far, and obviously great things left to come. We always close our interviews with this one question of, if you had the opportunity to provide advice and counsel to our young airmen and soldiers, what would it be?
Be confident. I saw this quote yesterday, and it's certainly not original to me. I hope I can re-quote it properly. I do the things that I'm afraid of so that I can do the things that I'm afraid of, to build my confidence. There will come a time, as you are in the military, or actually, regardless whether you're in the military or not, if you're out in the civilian sector and in leadership. And oh, by the way, leadership is I saw this as well. It's not original to me, but it really struck me that leadership is not something you give others. It's something that others bestow you the opportunity to do, based off their trust and confidence in you. So build your confidence. Do the things that you're afraid of, so that you can do the things that you're afraid of. Trust your soldiers. Let them, those that you are attempting to lead, let them have a shot at what you're doing as well. Bring them in on the process. Consensus is not required, but input is. And let your teams help build you and the organization. So that's what I would tell young folks is give it a try. Yeah, it's certainly, I can only speak from my own personal experience. It's changed my life. It's changed my wife and my son's lives, and it's all for the better. And it's been just such an honor and joy to wear this uniform.
Well, General Ross, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Up first this month in the Tennessee Bluff, soldiers in the 268th Military Police Company just returned from a deployment to the Horn of Africa. More than 80 soldiers returned to Tennessee from a nearly year-long deployment in mid-November. The 268th, which is based in Millington, is comprised of military police soldiers trained in security operations, base defense, movement control, and law and order. The soldiers spent the last 10 months serving in Djibouti as part of Combined Joint Task Force, Horn of Africa. The 268th conducted several different missions during their deployment, but were mainly responsible for securing and defending an airfield, which was located roughly 6 miles southwest of Djibouti City, the nation's capital. In national news, Congress is considering legislation that would allow drill status Guard members to participate in cost-free health insurance coverage. The bipartisan legislation, if passed, would give Guard and Reserve members access to no-fee health care through TRICARE Reserve Select. Currently, TRS charges a fee for medical and dental coverage. The legislation has yet to pass the House or the Senate. And in other national news, following the Department of Defense's move to ban the social media app TikTok in 2020, other government agencies and officials are following suit. The state of South Dakota recently banned use of the app on state-owned devices, and Federal Communications Commissioner Brendan Carr called for a complete ban in the United States in late November. Usage of TikTok is prohibited for U.S. military personnel due to the significant cybersecurity risks associated with using the social media platform. Any Guard members with questions on proper social media usage should contact their public affairs office. That's our Tennessee Bluff for this month. Up next, Lieutenant Colonel Malone sits down with Colonel Jason Glass.
Well, listeners of the 1796 podcast, I am honored and thrilled to be joined today by Colonel Jason Glass. Colonel Glass is the Assistant Adjutant General for Air for the Tennessee Air National Guard. Sir, welcome to the 1796 podcast.
Thank you, Marty.
Well, sir, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you came to be in the National Guard and how you came to be where you are now.
So I started out enlisted in the 241st in Chattanooga, went to ROTC in Memphis and active duty after that. And then February of 2000 got back into the Guard, back into the 241st. Was there for about 6 months, then got hired on at full-time in Knoxville at the 228th Combat Communications Squadron, and then to Joint Force Headquarters as the J6. over to Berry Field as the Cyber Intel Group Commander, and then back to my current position here at headquarters.
Awesome. Oh, that's great. What a great trip for you. And so let's just dig into some of these questions. So I know Tennessee is blessed to have 3 wings. They've got C-17s in Memphis, ISR in Nashville, and KC-135s in Knoxville. And people from those wings have started initiatives like the First Sergeant Symposium and the Security Forces Patrol Course. And those were created by Tennesseans for Tennesseans. But other people from other states and other agencies are trying to get into those. They want to come to our First Sergeant Symposium. They want to come to our patrol course. What makes Tennessee such a hotbed for these creative initiatives?
Well, I think it's several factors, but the leading factor to that is leadership. We've got leaders, both officer and enlisted, across the state of Tennessee that are fully engaged. They want to grow and mature airmen. Because they are our future, and they take that to heart. None of that has been a push on my side, and the team across the state, they've taken off and run with it. So, First Sergeant Symposium, as you said, we've been doing that for about 3 or 4 years now. Numerous other states, I don't know off the top of my head, but typically, I think our highest was about 225 from across the nation. Held at the TEC, we've got great locations to do that. And to host that kind of event. So that has worked out really well. Our active duties participated as well as the reserves. So again, Tennessee is leading the way in that regard. The patrol course, I always say once you got a security forces member, it's a security forces member for life. You can't braid it out of them. They absolutely love what they do, and they're excellent at what they do. So they identified a gap. They took the challenge and said, hey, we're going to address the gap in Tennessee. Well, that from day one, it turned out to be an excellent course. We taught that both Army and Air, so we practiced our jointness in Tennessee. So we had soldiers go through that course as our first course as well. But predominantly for our security forces members, for training that they were no longer getting in their 3-level awarding school out of tech school. So since then, we've opened it up. One class we had 8 other states participating in. Our state partnership, Bulgaria, has sent airmen over here to participate in this course, and couldn't be prouder of what our airmen are doing out there for the nation. And right now we're trying to work the resourcing for that, because that's another thing that airmen do here in Tennessee is they will take it out of hide. Whether it's time, money, resources, they're going to make it work and be successful, and couldn't be prouder of the team for that.
Awesome. Well, sir, I know there's some things coming down the road that we're looking forward to here in Tennessee. What are some of the imminent changes you see coming to the Tennessee Air National Guard?
So really exciting times, and I'm just glad to be a part of it. But again, our airmen in the field are leading the way. So right now we're working with NGB to establish a cyber operations group and cyber operations squadron. Both will be located in Knoxville, Tennessee. Really looking at the future. So as you look at where to divest or where to grow, you always want to lean forward and look at what's going to be out there for the next 20, 30, 40 years. Cyber is not going anywhere.
Right.
And I think it will become more prominent as a warfighting capability that we use in the future. So the ability to grow those groups and squadrons in Knoxville, it will also help us restructure some of our current existing manpower and mission sets to consolidate all that under one group. Great initiative, again, airmen in the field leading the way. Another one that we've got on the books right now that we're working hot and heavy is for the KC-46. Our KC-135s are, I think the youngest one is around 60, 62 years old now. So at some point we've got to get into the future of the air refueling business. And I will tell you, couldn't be prouder of the men and women of the 134th, national level award winners, best air refueling wing in the nation twice in the last 6 years. Just incredible people, incredible mission, and incredible location. So currently I think we're well established. We are ready for the 46 today. Just built a brand new hangar, had a ribbon cutting this past year on the new hangar. Pease flew one of their KC-46s down, and we actually cut the ribbon with the KC-46 sitting in the hangar. I don't know of too many other states that can say that. But other things on top of that, did a ribbon cutting as well for adding an additional 10,000-foot runway up at McGee Tyson. So A lot of real estate that we can build and house and integrate with our active duty partners that will come with that mission set. So really excited about that one. I think we've got a strong case to build for Tennessee.
Awesome. Are there any other long-term initiatives, something 15, 20 years that might be a dream at this point, but something you'd like to see?
I would call it a dream. So we used to have a space mission here in Tennessee. My understanding is that it did not make it in this NDAA.
Right.
Don't know what the future of that looks like, but Tennessee still has trained airmen.
Right.
In that space mission. We've got facilities that can facilitate that. So I think we've got a good way ahead there. As you look and as funds are cut, looking at force structure across the nation, all branches of the service, looking at existing facilities that can be reutilized, I think Tennessee stands a strong opportunity to grow if growth is needed and required by the active duty.
Cool. Very interesting. So, sir, let's say you had a potential recruit standing in front of you. What do you tell them to let them know that the Tennessee Air National Guard is a great option for military service compared to, say, reserve or active duty?
So I've got a little bit of background there. I've been both Guard and active duty.
Right.
So that helps in that discussion. But whenever I meet with our student flight folks across the state and talk with them, find out what their goals, aspirations are, where they want to go, my biggest lead-in line was, you have just enlisted in the biggest adventure of your life. My short 33 years in uniform has been the biggest adventure of my life. And I think actions speak louder than words. Both of my boys are in. I couldn't be prouder of them in the Air Force, and it truly is. It's an adventure. We teach things habitually in the military, like leadership, like responsibility, like goals, focus, that not everybody gets in the day-to-day walk of life. Being an airman not only brings a skill set to those individuals, it brings a mission accomplishment to those individuals, but it also broadens their horizons in this civilian world, which is a big part of the Guard. There's about 30% of us that are full-time. The rest of us, or the rest of our airmen, have other full-time jobs.
Right.
And being able to use what you've learned because of your military aspect, whether it's training or whatever, leadership, it really helps those airmen out in the future.
Awesome. So you mentioned student flight. Let's say you had a student flight in front of you, or any of us for that fact. What's your best piece of advice or leadership advice for us?
Well, so one of the things that, or a couple of the mottos that I have tried to live through in my 33 years, one is never ask anybody to do something you're not willing to do yourself.
Right.
And I truly mean that. I think I've done quite a bit, but I know there's some things that I haven't done. But I'm always willing to try and lean out there, and I believe in leading by example. I believe in actually leading airmen the way we should lead airmen, the way I was brought up when I was enlisted. The second word of advice is, or thing that I would say is, my job is no more important than a senior airman in A1C in the field today. We just have different jobs and responsibilities, but we are all important. Everybody has a piece of the puzzle, and it takes the complete team to make our operations work. And Tennessee is shining in our operational aspects.
Awesome, sir. Thank you so much. Great advice for all of us. Well, thank you for joining us on the 1796 podcast.
All right. Thank you, Marty.
Take care, sir.
All right. Bye.
Well, listeners, thanks so much for listening to the 1796 podcast. If you like what you heard, please consider subscribing, sharing this episode with friends, and giving us a 5-star review. The 1796 podcast is produced by the Tennessee National Guard Joint Public Affairs Office. For more information, please visit www.tn.gov/military.